Welcome to day 4 of our 21-day Herbally-Inspired Challenge, Holiday Challenge. And today we are going to be talking about sourcing herbs and how do we know where to go to find a good quality herb, and what are the things to look for. So before we get started with that, though, I want to do my card of the day, and our plant for today is lavender, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's probably the most oops, my shirt's doing something weird. It's probably the most well-known plant because it's very, very popular, of course, as the essential oil and for all the scents and like sleep pillows and all that sort of thing. And so I want to read you something. This is one of my favorite books, Alchemy of Herbs by Rosalee de la Foret. She's an herbalist out in Washington State, and she's amazing. She's a very accessible approach to herbalism. She really makes it easy for people to understand and use herbs. So if you don't have one of her books, I highly recommend it. I wanted to read a quote from her about lavender, but let me just read the quote from the card first. Again, this is another one from the Soulflower essence deck, and what it says is that lavender's restorative and purifying energy and aroma calms and uplifts your mind and body, easing feelings of stress and agitation from your earthly distractions and rejuvenating your soul so that you can truly feel and radiate inner peace and harmony. Like, who doesn't want that? To feel more inner peace and be able to radiate it, more inner peace and harmony. Definitely something we all want. And so that's a great message from lavender today. Now, the quote from Rosalee from her book, this is what she says. Although some might dismiss lavender as simply a pretty smelling plant, I love that it teaches us how important smell can be. While we know that eating or drinking things can have an effect on our health and how we feel, lavender shows us how the simple act of smelling something can dramatically alter our mood by reducing anxiety, pain, and promoting sleep. And so just smelling lavender can have these positive effects on us, relieving anxiety. It can also help to promote sleep. It helps to kind of lower your blood pressure and help you relax more. And so part of the reason why smelling things is so effective is because our bodies developed this pathway so that smells and scents go directly into our nervous system and they trigger immediate responses. Unlike the other type of sensory input that we have from like our hearing or our sight or feeling, those go into the hypothalamus and then they get interpreted and then the proper response is made by our body. But smells, they get to bypass that gateway sort of, because as when we used to be, out in the wild all the time, the sense of smell was so important for safety. And so our bodies developed this mechanism to be able to immediately respond to a scent that we might find out in the environment. So that's part of the reason why not only lavender, but essential oils in general can be so effective and having a more immediate response from your body. Lavender is not just for smelling. You can't actually use the herb, the actual flower tops as an herb, and you can make it into a tea. And this summer I made a lavender glycerite, which I haven't tried a whole lot of, but I'm really looking forward to that. Again, you could take that glycerite, you could put it into, we were talking the other day about elderberry and how you can put it into a seltzer and drink it that way. So one of the great things about lavender is that it has kind of this gentle warming effect and it can be helpful for your digestion. Everybody thinks usually of ginger for digestion, but ginger's kind of a lot for some people. So if you don't really like ginger, you might just try some lavender and just a cup of lavender tea to help you relax. If you're relaxing your whole system, then things are going to work better, right? So and then the third thing is really just the pain relief. There was a study she quotes in her book about how they tested people who normally get migraines, and that they had really good results with just using lavender. Now, I did know somebody at one point in my life who was allergic to lavender, like really allergic. And another friend of mine, we did a spa day here where we used lavender in our facial steam and some of the scrubs and stuff. And she had an allergic reaction on her face. So people can be allergic to lavender. So something to bear in mind. In fact, people can be allergic to just about anything. Every body is different. And so you got to test these things out for yourself and just make sure that it works for you. Now, one really important note is that there are, in many cases, there's different types. If you're familiar with how plants are named, there's the genus and the species. And so we can have a lot of these different species of plants. And usually there's one that's the one that's considered the best medicinally, or, not even medicinally, but just for human use. And so in this case with lavender, it's lavender, lavandula angustifolia, and that's called, I think, true lavender, sometimes English lavender. And so, which is funny because like lavender does not come from England. It comes from the Mediterranean. So I don't know how it got the name English lavender, but so you want to just make sure that you're getting the lavandula angustifolia. Anything else would really just be used for the scent. Okay, if you're going to be taking it more medicinally. And so that leads me into our discussion for today about sourcing herbs and knowing, like, how do I know where to get good herbs? How do I know if I have good, or like, how do I tell what is good and what is not? So, of course, the best way to have the best, freshest, best herbs is to grow your own. Grow your own herbs. And there are certain herbs that I grow every year. One of those being calendula, which I always tell people, calendula, if you're going to grow one thing, grow some calendula. It is such an awesome herb. So you can grow your own, but that's kind of impossible considering the wide range of different types of flowers and roots and whatnot. Of course, there's always wild harvesting, but you got to be pretty confident in your identification. I've been doing this for a long time, so I can go out and identify. I've misidentified things, made a whole oil out of something I thought was chickweed and ended up throwing it out because I realized that was not the right plant. So if you're going to be wild harvesting, you want to make sure you definitely want to know what you're harvesting. And of course, the second best place to source your herbs is going to be someplace like a local grower, farmer's market, or someplace like that. And so if you're lucky enough to have a nice farmer's market near you where you can go and they have an herb vendor there, that would be a great way to get different kinds of herbs. And a lot of times those types of people will have the most popular things at their booth, and they might have a bunch of other stuff at home that they're not really selling to everybody. So if there's something specific you're looking for, you can always ask what they have. So the third best place will be like an actual herb store or natural food store. Now, most of those places are not growing or sourcing locally. They're buying in herbs from a wholesale herb company. But if it's a popular store with a lot of traffic, then you know that it's going to be have good turnover. And that's what you want. You don't want to be buying herbs that have been sitting stagnant in a jar for a year and a half because it's not a very popular an herb, for example. So always ask about how long has this been here? And if you can, I know now we're one of the natural food stores I go to in the herb store. You used to be able to kind of go in and smell the herb containers, but now with COVID, no one lets you do that. But you can just ask. You can ask how long it's been there, how fresh is it, and so on. And the other day when we were talking about the supplies, I mentioned how a lot of times, unfortunately, herbs and spices can be irradiated. And so this is a way that to create a more shelf-stable product, because a lot of times the herbs in those little containers in your grocery store are just going to be sitting there for a while, right? And so they irradiate them in order to make them more shelf-stable. I don't know what effect that has. I personally don't want my stuff irradiated. And so what you can do is you can look for a certified organic herb, which is always better anyway, in my opinion, just because you're using this for medicine, for potentially, not even if you're not healing a particular illness, you're definitely trying to improve your health and wellness by using herbs. And so you want to make sure you're getting something that's as clean as possible. If your local grower isn't certified organic, but you know what they're doing, then it's fresh and it's going to be the most potent. So that would be the other place to look. So then the fourth option would be to go to a reputable online distributor. And probably the most popular one is Mountain Rose Herbs. I noticed that a number of people that joined into this challenge, they are part of the Mountain Rose Herbs Facebook group. They are a really high quality. I know a lot of the bigger name herbalists in the United States, at least, they all use Mountain Rose Herbs. They trust their products again. So that's what you want. You want to be able to trust the quality and how they're sourcing things. There's also Starwest Botanicals. They sell a lot of organic herbs. So if somebody's selling a lot of organic herbs, that means they're paying attention to what they're selling. All right. Now, unfortunately, when you're ordering online, you can't like look at the color, look at the scent, or smell it, and so on before you buy it to determine whether it's fresh or not. And I wanted to show you an example since we're talking about lavender. Let's see if you can see this. So this is some lavender that I got. It's a little bit old. And now, what color is lavender? It's lavender. That doesn't look very lavender, does it? So this has been, it still smells pretty good, but you want to look at the color and the scent of it to see how fresh it is. This is getting a little bit dingy, so I'm probably going to want to use this up right away. Start throwing it in my tea, my nightly tea. So the last thing that I wanted to share with about ordering is like, how much should I get? And the real question is, how much is an ounce? And so I did a little demonstration for you, because when you are buying herbs, a lot of times you're required to buy 4 ounces of herb at a time. Okay. And so I wanted to show you this. So it really depends on what is it? What part of the plant mostly are you buying? So here in this 1 cup measuring cup, I have put in some licorice root, and it's chopped up. And that is about a 1/2 ounce of licorice root. So that seems like a reasonable amount. I could probably get 4 ounces and go through that pretty quickly. Now this is a 1/2 ounce of rose petals in another measuring cup. So you can look at the difference in just the volume of each of these, even though they're each a 1/2 ounce, the volume that they take up is completely different. So you can really get yourself in trouble. I was going to show you. I ordered from this place called First Chinese Herbs, some reishi. 1 pound of reishi. I got this massively huge bag. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to make reishi extract for all my friends. So you have to, but it was on sale. So anyway, just bear in mind, again, if you're just making stuff for yourself, you don't want to be ordering a huge amount because you want to go through it quickly. You want to be going through it quickly because you want to have the freshest possible product. That's pretty much all I wanted to share. Kanita is saying that Indian stores sell a lot of herbs. And yes, sometimes even in Indian or Chinese stores, you can get certain things in there. Again, you have to make sure you know what you want to go into places like that. And this is why the botanical name, like the scientific name, Lavandula angustifolia, or whatever it might be, is very, very important. And I'll check into it more, but I would think it more likely that herbs coming in from other countries, I don't mean to sound negative, but would possibly, I know European Union allows irradiation of herbs and spices. So depending on where it's coming from, it might be either more or less likely that it has been irradiated. So this is just something to keep in mind and maybe do a little research on it because yes, what's so nice about these different kinds of cultural food stores is that you can get big, larger quantities for something that's kind of like a food slash herb for a better price. So definitely worth looking into. So awesome. Very good. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for coming in for day 4. Have a great day. Thanks everybody for joining. Bye-bye.